All right, demos time. Today we have Hubert demoing the Matrix client tutorial. Sorry, we also have Doug demoing Element X room moderation. We have Murrow and Amsha demoing Element X roomless filtering, and finally we have Timo demoing access control for Element Call Guests. And a bit of a teaser for next time because we don't have time today, but really looking forward to it nonetheless. Ben will be demoing in a future sync the Element X Android gallery. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Hubert, who will demo the Matrix client tutorial.
All right, let me try to share my screen. All right. Yeah, so the Matrix client tutorial is something I've been working on in my spare time for a bit over a year. Apparently, my first Git commit was in, I think, January of last year. So a bit of background behind why I wrote it. So it was mostly due to wanting to redo the existing end-to-end encryption implementation guide. The guide was originally written in 2016 by Rich, and it mostly hasn't changed very much since then. And yeah, there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening since then in encryption land. Not just with new features such as cross-signing and Quad S, which we have another guide for in the on the Matrix website, but just working with basic encryption over the past few years, we've learned a lot about how we should be implementing encryption. And also one of the things that I found missing from this guide was sample source code, because you know, as a programmer, sometimes reading words is not as clear as reading code. So a couple years ago, I tried my hand at writing a new end-to-end encryption implementation guide, and I opened a PR for it, and this one tried to explain a bit more about how to use Libel, because that was all we had at that time. And it also had some sample source code so that people can look at it and see exactly what they're supposed to do. But I wasn't quite satisfied with this because, for one thing, there were a lot of functions where I had to say, you know, pretend your client has a function that does this, where it, for example, where it reads the sync data, and you know, I just sort of picked an API at random, and it wasn't clear whether that was, you know, something that would actually be usable in a client. Another thing I found was I made typos in the sample code, and you know, I felt that it was like I didn't have a way of testing the code to make sure that whether what I was writing actually worked, and whether it made sense. And I didn't want to put out source code out there that people would be copying over and over, and then it turns out that it does completely the wrong thing. So at around the same time, some of us on the spec core team were looking at writing different guides for matrix things. So Eric had started a server guide. I don't think those are available anymore, but there's, you can probably find some bits of it in Git somewhere. But yeah, so that was sort of the inspiration for sort of writing a full tutorial, because I wanted to write an implementation guide that had actual usable source code where you could, where I could write something and test it and know that it works. So this guide uses what's known as literate programming, which is a style of programming created by Donald Knuth, which some people may know from the tech typesetting system, or from the art of computer programming, or various other things. But the idea behind literate programming is that it mixes text with computer code, and rather than being written with the computer as the primary audience, the primary audience is people, and then you run a program on the source code, or on the document that generates the runnable code. And the way it works is you have code here, and then you have these little placeholder things where you insert other things. So these are called code blocks. And so I have this copyright code block where I have the copyright defined down here. So at the top of the block, it has the name. And then so I have another code block called client module functions. And then back here in the client.py, I have this client module functions here. And then so when you run the program to parse the source code, then it finds all those chunks, puts them all together, and generates the machine runnable code. So I've started with the basics of matrix. So this basics chapter is basically all the everything you need to have a usable matrix client that does something. So it's sort of a minimal matrix client. And then the end-to-end encryption part is the stuff that I've been mostly working on. And so it goes through the basic concepts of end-to-end encryption, how to create device keys and one-time keys, how to track other people's keys. And it goes through it in a lot more detail than the old guide, and it includes keys. It includes sample code. It says specifically what endpoints to use, what the endpoints look like. So this is the schema that you get back from the sync, specifically for the device lists. And then I've tried to document all the little gotchas that we've come across over the past 4 years of doing encryption in Matrix, all the tips and tricks that I've found, that we've found. And yeah, so when I, so this is what the markdown looks like when I write it. So it has these blocks of code, and then I run it through, this thing is in the way. I have a script here that runs through everything. It runs unit tests because I have tests associated with all the code, and all the tests are basically right beside the code that it tests. So let me see here. Here's an example. Here I have, so it's just in an expandable section. And some tests I have more explanation than others, but it's expandable, so it doesn't take any space if you don't want to look at it. But because the tests are right beside the code, you know, it's easier to check that the tests match what you're trying to write. And because I've made myself write tests, I have so I have this all running through CI in GitLab, and I have 88% test coverage, which is better than a lot of actual project code that I'm writing. Yeah, so I'm just going to run a demo. So this is the example that's at the bottom of the, where is it? At the bottom of this last section of just tying all the different encryption pieces together. And it's just a bot that echoes everything that you write in a room. So I've created a room. I'm logged in as Alice, and I'm talking to the bot. And so I've run the program. Oops, and oh, where is that? So if I say something, then the bot just echoes that. And then I'm going to try something which I haven't tried before. I'm going to try changing this. Where is it? Content. Content. Right. Content equals. So I'm going to change what it says. I haven't tried this before, so I don't know if it's going to work. So I just want to prefix that with the sender name. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to rerun this script, which builds the code. It's running through lint as well, so it's saying that it doesn't like the formatting because the line is too long. So I'm just going to copy that. I think that's what it said to do. So run that. So it runs through lint, it runs through tests to make sure that I haven't broken anything, and then builds the HTML. So if I go back to this thing, and oh, I'm looking at the wrong version. That was the published version. This should be the local version. Then, so there's the updated source code in the documentation. And if I run the program again, or run the example and try to find the right tab, then there, I've missed a space, but there, you can see that it's changed what it says. So yeah, that's how I get runnable code from documentation. So yeah, that's what I wanted to demo today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you very much. That's really cool and well demoed. Thank you, Hubert. That's awesome. Okay, great. On to our next demo then, Element X room moderation by Doug. Over to you.
Hello. Let me get my window shared. Go. You should be able to see a phone. Move that out of the way. So yeah, I'm going to run over the upcoming room moderation feature for Element X. Yeah, to do that, let's start off, and we're just going to create a new room. Whilst we're here, you can see we've recently added suggestions, so I can now quite quickly add people who I've recently chatted to, and I also want to add a load of bots just to fill up the room. So let's make our moderation room. Cool. So we've got a room, and hopefully, we've got bots slowly adding, and they're going to chat away to themselves. The first place to look for the new feature is if you go to the room settings by tapping at the top. We have this new roles and permissions section. So if I open that, you can see we can now change roles of different users along with permissions required for various actions within the room. So I am just going to go and I shall make one of these members an admin. We give you a notification just to let you know that once someone's made an admin and they've got the same power level as you, you can't demote them again. So we shall do that. And then if I go to moderators, let's create a couple of moderators as well. And so we can do this as a batch operation. So we can select as many or few people as we want and just hit save and do everyone at once. So we'll do that, and you should see now at the top we've got 2 admins, 2 moderators. Then for permissions, it's sort of as you would expect. We can come in here and change who can set the room name, who can change the avatar, who can change the topic, and we can go in and say who can send messages and remove messages. So if I change send messages to admins only, then if I go back to the room itself, you should see that the bots have gone very quiet because only one of them is an admin, and so it will be a lot longer until it decides to talk. Then that's the first part. The second part of the feature is if we go to the room members list, you will now see that the list shows on the right hand side. You can see what role various members have, and as an admin, if I tap on someone, say a moderator or a user, I will now be presented with a sheet where I can also remove and ban them. And whilst I'm here, I just want to show that if we go to someone's profile now, if you do a direct chat with someone, we now push that in rather than replacing where you were. So it's quite nice and easy to come straight back to where you were. So let's we're going to remove this person, and then we're going to ban the last bot. And so now, if I go to the ban section, you can see this is where we will list all the users that are banned. We hide their profile so that any pictures or names that you don't want to see won't be shown. And equally, if I've decided that actually bot7 was a nice person, I can unban them, and then come back to here, and I should now be able to re-invite both of those 2 if I want to. That is basically a quick whistle-stop tour of how moderation is going to work in Element X. It's almost complete now. We're just waiting for a few final tweaks and sign off, and then it should be landing in the release after that. So yeah, thank you.
Cool. Cheers, Doug. I think that will certainly help a lot of people adopt Element X, even more people, I should say, as their daily driver. I know people have been calling out for the moderation tools for a while. So yeah, it looks really cool. Okay, over to our next demo then, which will be Element X room list filtering by Mauro and Amsha.
Yeah, I think Amsha wants to start by pretty much spending some time talking about the design process that was made to build this amazing feature that we now have on Element X. So
taking it away. All right. So the Element X team has been getting a lot of requests to add filters to the app. Basically, this would help people navigate their chats more easily. And so today I'm going to take you through the thinking behind this. And then, like Mauro said, he'll demo the app. And just wanted to share that, like with every other feature, we always have been starting with reviewing how we did things on legacy app and then taking it from there. So first, I want to share with you the problems or the feedback that we'd received with the legacy app. So on the left is what we had on iOS. On the right is what we had on Android, which looked fairly similar. Now, the problems with this was that, first of all, the room filter was missing, and people were really asking for that. The second one was that this tab system kind of failed the second someone had a larger text size enabled, or if it was translated into German, let's say. So because tabs are usually fixed width, this would just not look polished because the size would be slightly different and it wouldn't fit on the screen. And lastly, we felt like it was kind of limiting because this was fixed width. And if we ever wanted to add more tabs or customize it in any way, we wouldn't have the ability to do that. So these were the problems with the legacy deployment. And so what we did was, as always, we explored various different models. Here are three that I would like to just tell you pros and cons of really quickly. So the one on the left, the first one is a regular style chip system, I would call it. And then you can just go from one to the other, which is quite familiar to people. And the pro is that it's quite familiar. The con of this approach was basically that, as you can see, there is a fourth filter, which you can't really see, which is favorites. And you would have to horizontally scroll every time that you wanted to use that filter. So you can see how that could get annoying really fast. So we thought about this, and then we explored another model, which is what you see in the middle, which was to have a context menu, which is getting fairly popular on the iOS side. But actually, there is no equivalent of that on Android side. And that was turning out to be a problem because we kind of want easy maintenance of code, and having something that's similar for both iOS and Android kind of helps us maintain our code better. And lastly, the third approach that we tried was native segmentation control, which exists on iOS and Android both. The con of this was basically similar to what I shared with the legacy app, where if the text size is way too big, or if the translation doesn't fit in this size, it just doesn't look polished enough. And so the approach that we landed up with is what you see on the screen right now. And Mauro will take you through exactly how it works and what the interaction is, but I kind of want to highlight the main features that it covers. So the first one is that we added rooms as a tab as well, which is what people were asking for. The second one is, as you can see, this uses chips similar to one of the explorations that I showed you, which means that it's scalable, even if the text size is different, or if there's a different language or translation being used. Now, the difference from the previous approaches is that we're allowing you to select multiple filters at the same time. And we believe this is one way to avoid the excessive horizontal scrolling. Because, for example, now if you select people, rooms would disappear because they're mutually, you can't have a people and a room together, basically. So that's our way of tackling the horizontal scroll problem. And along with that, we also redid the ordering of the filters so that whatever you use more, which we were hearing was unreads, we're putting that first. But our goal is to learn from when we launch this. I guess it is launched, but we learn from how people are using it, and we can change the order accordingly. And lastly, it's the same on iOS and Android, which makes it easier for us to maintain. Now, Mauro, up to you.
Yeah, so I'll share the screen of the simulator. Just a second, please. Okay, can you see the screen? Okay, so here we have our filters. First one, we have the unread filter, which of course will help you go through all your unread rooms and DMs. The people filter, which will filter out only DMs. The room filter, which will show you all your group chats. And the favorites, which essentially will work for all the rooms that you marked as favorite. And I want to remark that these actions, the marking actions, actually work in real time. So for example, if I just make Doug one of my favorite DMs, I can just go back to favorites and that will be there. And as Amsha just said, these filters are actually chainable if possible. So for example, I can chain favorites in reds and just see pretty much my favorite chat with myself, which is in red, or maybe I can just chain favorites and people and see, in this case, again, that I get back my chat with myself and my chat with Doug, since they're my favorites one. At the same time, I can also chain these properties with the mark as red and mark as unread features. So for example, if I just mark this as a red and I go to the unreads, now everything is empty. I go back to it, mark it as unread, go back to the unreads, and it's back here. So it's all responsive to the states that essentially change how you mark your rooms, both with favorites and unreads. That's the reason why we wanted to release these features alongside the filters, since they will provide since their functionality will be highlighted thanks to this new amazing feature that we have. Of course, as I said, you can chain a lot of filters together, but as you can see, some filters are mutually exclusive. So for example, as we said before, people and rooms essentially make each other disappear, because of course you cannot have a DM and a group chat at the same time. So of course, when you tap room, the people room will go away and vice versa. And of course, these are just some of the filters that we have already implemented. They are already releases, but we are planning to have more filters in the future. For example, we are already planning also an idea of maybe including a filter that already exists on Element Web, a tag that already exists on Element Web more than a filter, which is low priority, for example. So yeah, we have these ideas of including more filters in the future that will provide more benefit to the end user of the app. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thanks. No, I think it looks really good. I particularly personally enjoyed the explanation on the different options you had for the filter list and how you came to where we are today. I think a lot of people will find that really helpful. So yeah, thank you so much for going through that. Next up, and finally, we have Timo talking about the access control for Element Call guests.
Cool. Hello, everyone. So basically, this is kind of like a part 2 demo. So last month, we showed how we have guest access in the first place. But the limitation was that it really only worked in public rooms, which, yeah, is somewhat a limitation. But now we are at a point where we have this room, test knocking. And this one has private as its access setting. So only people who are invited can join. And if we want to start a call here, we get the option, even though there's only one person in the room, we select element call. And wait, turns out the demo is not working. Let's double check if we actually have it set to private. Maybe also just quickly change it back to public and back to private. If that doesn't work, also not a big issue. So what usually should have happened is, oh wait, no, it actually is all fine. I was just not understanding how it all worked again. So this works. I can join the call. What should prompt the thing I was expecting to see is if we start to share a link to the call. So if it's a private room, we can participate by ourselves, but we also have the option to share a link for the public. But we don't immediately get the link. We first get prompted with this dialog where it's asking us if we are really sure we want this room to change its access level, and we can make it public. That's a kind of destructive action in this case, though, because it's public then and the security is highly compromised. Everybody could join who get the link, but we can also set it to ask to join, which is a knocking feature, which is part of Element Web. So if I press here, we get this view. We can double check with the room settings and see that it now got swapped to ask to join. So I can copy the link and paste it, like pretend I shared it to somebody, paste it into a new tab, reload a little bit, and we can type in our name. So this is Timo from, or without matrix is what I call it, without matrix. So this user doesn't has any connection to matrix. They just got the link, and I can press join. And the way this looks now is that I'm getting the lobby, but I'm not getting the option to join, but I get the option to ask to join the room. So I can press this ask to join button. And on the right-hand side, so here we now see request sent. And on the right-hand side, we see a banner which is telling us that this team without matrix user with that user ID wants to join. And we can even reload this page or go back to a different computer and go in again. And we still see that we have a request sent. And as soon as we go and accept the request on the side, the left-hand side will update and we get the option to join. I'll also send this link out to the new Vector internal room now. So in case anybody also wants to add a knocking prompt, they're up to this, can just click the link and follow the same procedure, knocking, and then they can join the call. So now I'm joining and we can see we are immediately part of the room. And the cool thing now is that this is actually part of the room of this temporary account. So even if this user decides they want to hang up real quick, get a coffee, they still have this in their historic rooms, so they can join again, except if there are multiple ones wanting to knock now, so I can accept all of those other participants. So they should now have the option to join. Even more, hey Manu. If I'm going here now and I say this team without matrix, they should be removed from the room, then the SPA also updates and removes this particular user. Sorry, I'm kind of slow here in accepting all the knocks. There's actually a thing we also want to improve. Currently, it's a little cumbersome. It's also really cool to just test this in action, how cumbersome it actually is. So I'll just real quick join with this user again. So I click here. This user is now not part of the room anymore, so we get asked to join again. I can accept it here. We get into the call. And one more thing I wanted to show is that it is kind of cool if you're already part of the call, but then you're getting removed from the call, even though we don't have anything in place in terms of like actual reactive logic to this. We'll soon see that after like a little grace period, this account here on the left-hand side will have only frozen tiles because they are not part of the secure room anymore. They don't get the crypto. Now we reach that state. They don't get crypto keys anymore. So even though there is like no implementation at all to deal with this situation gracefully, we still at least have the security for this. So this person here can now not read the streams anymore because they got removed from the room. Cool. Yeah, that's it. So we are at a place where any room can be used as a shared room to share links, and then we use the knocking feature to do access control on those. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Timo. Love an interactive demo always as well. Right, well, that concludes 4 really exciting demos today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I really hope you have a great evening and great weekends as well. I think that's all from me. Thank you.